said, you have the chat. Feel free to ask your questions in the chat. I will randomly pick up those questions and answer them. At the same time, make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Once this video is uploaded, you will be notified. All right, so today we are going to go on a series of sessions to talk about SSRS, SSIS. And let me just take a brief explanation what we are really going to talk about today. All right, in business intelligence world, you do have this, and this. Okay, all right. Now, what are all about? You have SSIS, you have SSRS, and you have SSAS. What does this actually stand for? This is SQL Server, the SQL Server integration services, right? And you have SQL Server reporting services, and you have SQL Server analysis services. Okay, so how is this actually important for you, right? Now, all these three things work together, hand in hand, right, in order for you to display what is called business intelligence. So with SSRS, in this case here, we're dealing with what is called ETL, which is extraction, transformation, and loading. Okay, ETL processes, which therefore means that in a business intelligence world, you have data coming from multiple sources, right? And this data may be coming from a flat file. This data might be coming from an Excel sheet. This data might be coming from Oracle, Postgres, MySQL, and this data needs to be extracted from whatever source is coming from. Once this data is extracted, it is then transformed, right? Sometimes data needs to be transformed. And that's what we're looking into that. Data needs to be transformed probably from a flat file into a SQL Server, or maybe a data that needs to transform in such a way that you need some multiplication, you need some data massaging before the data is then loaded into the destination server. So in SSRS, you are always going to have what is called the source and the destination, right? You have the data sources and you have the destination, where the data is coming from and where it's eventually going to. Now, in between the source and the destination is the transformation in the middle. And we're going to look into that in subsequent sessions, look at all the different ways in which data can be extracted, how data can be transformed, and how you can load it. So once this data has been extracted, right, it is then sent into an SSRS server. So this is a SQL Server integration services tool is then sent into a SQL Server reporting services. And what happens in these reporting services is that, well, reports are written, right? Reports are written. These reports are written, and all these reports, you build them, report builder, you have what's called report builder. And in all these SSRS services, you can run your queries, right? You can run your queries to query the data that is actually on the server, right? And once you run this, write this report, then this report goes into this SQL Server analysis services. Now, in this case here, you have data visualization. Right? The data is visualized and decisions are made through the data that is displayed. Right? So, and on this SSAS, this is where you have all the analysis that have been done on the data, the queries that are on. You do analysis, you do reporting, and as we go deeper into this, you are going to hear of Power BI, which actually has a better visualizations tool set to be able to visualize the data and make it much more meaningful for you to make meaningful decisions. Right? Now, going through these entire processes, there are quite a lot of configurations that you, as an architectural DBA or database administrator, data architect, or whatever position you're working and you're required to have this, you need to be able to manage all these different environments. Okay, and today we are going to be starting with configuring these different environments. Right? The reason why I'm not starting with SSIS is because it needs quite a lot of configuration, which I'm going to be giving to you guys as homework at the end of today's class. You're going to do all the downloads, prepare all the environment, and have it ready by next session. And we're going to go into preparing environment and then actually start by building simple packages that you can use in your environment to do any data extraction or transformation and loading of data. Okay, so this is exactly how we're going to run through it. Now, in order for us to do this, we are going to be using today, for today's agenda, we are going to use SQL 2022. I don't know how many of you have used SQL 2022. Okay, well, this tool works quite well for any other version of SQL Server that you will use. It could as well work for 2019 if you only have 2019. But I am going to be using SQL 2022 for this installation. Now, SQL 2022 is a brand new SQL Server that Microsoft is still developing. It's right now in the community phase. We can use this and also figure out some of the data in performance enhancement that Microsoft has put in place for something like that. And we're going to go into the installation and then build the entire SSRS environment. And so what we're going to do is install SQL Server 2022, configure. We're going to configure SSRS server. Then we are going to learn about permissions. Once you have this SSIS server configured, how do you get people access to be able to use it? We're going to learn about permission. We're going to learn about migration of an SSRS server. If time do permit us, we will be able to build simple reports if time permit. Okay, so it therefore means that we're going to go ahead by doing the installation. We're going to install SSRS and we're going to configure, because installation and configuration of SSRS is a complete different topic. And then we're going to figure out, once this SSRS has been configured, you are the DBA, you are working on this. Once you've done this, how do you make sure that people have access to this? And that's why I need a real environment, a corporate environment to be able to do this. Okay, so, and then we're going to move the SSIS server from one server to another. Let's say you get a project and your job is to, you're involved in a migration project and SSIS happens to be one of the things. How do you migrate? How do you deal with permission? How do you deal with all those encryption keys to be able to make sure that you successfully migrate, right? And with time, we will be able to do simple report building and understand how reports are actually built and generated on SSIS. And I think by then we should be done for today, okay? And then we will continue that in next session. All right, so without going so much deep into all this, I know that I can talk about SSIS for the next 2 hours. But before we go into this, does anybody have a question? We're going to go ahead and download a SQL Server 2022. Those are fast internet, you can do it. If your internet is slow and you have a 2019, you can also do this exercise with SQL Server 2019. Okay, so we go on Microsoft Evaluation Center. Evaluation Center. And on Microsoft Evaluation Center, this is where you have all the tools that you can download. Now we have here SQL Server 2022. This is what I want us to work on. We click on that. We'll be able to scroll down and right now. Okay. All right. So I can download the executable file, right? So you can go ahead and download this executable file and fill this form. So let me copy this link and put it on the chat for everyone that is interested to go ahead and download it. Okay, the link is on the chat. You can go ahead and download it and also put it in your Kelvitic community forum in case you're there. You can download it. Okay, so this really, you don't have to fill your real names. You can just put any name here, but since I don't need to, I can just fill with my real names. There is Kiawi, email is kiawi@gmail.com. Company is Kiawi Tech.
Doc, can you take one step behind? I didn't see where you click, please.
I sent the link. What I'm sending there already takes you to this link.
Okay.
Whatever you have in there already takes you here. Country is United States. Size of the company is that. The role is DB manager. The phone number 46. And then you can, if you want to have more information on Microsoft, you really don't need this. You just go ahead and click on download. All right, I don't want to have information. What is missing? Let's see. Okay. Field require. Okay, country code. That's what is required. United States. And download. Okay. So generally, these don't take long to download, and you will have it available. So I'm downloading the 64-bit. That's what I need to download. And you can see here, it's already downloaded. So it takes quite fast to download. My internet is quite fast, so it goes quite fast. But I already had it downloaded. I was just showing you guys to see how to download it. So I have it here, SQL Server 2022 downloaded. Okay. So for this exercise, I am going to be using virtual machines to do so. So I have an environment. This environment has 2 servers. I have my domain controller, and I have my production environment and my dev environment already joined to the domain. All right, guys, for those who are still new in this training, this might be very complicated to you, but once I get into the VM, you understand what I'm talking about. So now I'm just going to log on to this because I already have it installed on this, and I will do the installation on the dev environment for you to see. So you can see here, connect, and this is the virtual machine. So go ahead and download. So I'll connect. Okay, so I have it here on my environment, download it. I have evaluation edition is valid for 180 days, that's 6 months. Microsoft allows you to do so. So my download file is here, so I can literally just copy it. And guys, if you don't have virtual machine, you can also run this on your local machine though. You can just run it locally, and that should also work. So copy this, and I will paste it somewhere on the desktop of this virtual machine, and paste, and it copies. Right. So for those who don't have virtual machines like this, you can also download it locally on your laptop and run it directly on your laptop. It's also going to do the same work. But I'm doing this here because it's my lab environment and I want to test it out on my lab environment. Now, before I do installation of SQL Server 2022, well, this is a brand new server that I created. This server needs to meet Microsoft best practices for installation. You see my drives is not partitioned. So I'm just going to create 3 partitions here, one for data, one for TempDB, one for log, and one for backups. And I will run, so 4 partitions, and I will run my installation. So, okay. So in that case here, I will do the partition. So right click on this and go on disk management, and then we'll do a partition. Well, if you must not also partition this, you can also run this directly on your local drive without partitioning. It will just work, but it will not follow Microsoft best practices. So I'm really following best practices to make sure that you understand how you're going to do it if this was to be done. So I have 100 gigs, so I'm going to cut out roughly 50 gigs for the partition. So 50 gig is going to be 50 times 1024. That's about 51,200. So for my partition, so 1,200, and I'll shrink this. So it will give me about 50 gigs here, which I'm going to use this 50 gigs to create 4 partitions in it. So new simple volume, and I'm going to do H1 10 times 1024, which is 10,240. 10,240. Next, I'll use E, and this is going to be data. Finish. This might seem fast for some few people, but this is something that we've done so many times. So I don't really have to waste so much time on this. To F, and this is my log. Finish. And next one is 10,240. And this is my TempDB. Finish. And the rest, I'm going to use it as my back. 10,240. I use this as U drive for my backups. Okay, backups. Finish. And the remaining one here, this is something that we just brought here in our syllables, which is then the system drive. I'm going to use it as S drive, system drive. You're going to understand why we need system drive. It's one of the best recommended setup by Microsoft. So we have system drive. Okay, so I have everything done. Generally, if I go back here, you see that I have the drives. It's already partitioned. So I'm going to go into every single one of these, and I just create a folder there called MS SQL. Guys, what I'm doing here, I'm just preparing the environment for the installation. So I didn't want to do this before the class because I wanted you guys to see what I'm doing. So MS SQL is, I'll copy this folder and I'll put it in every one of these. Let's put it here. And put it here. And sorry, guys, my voice is not really good today, so hope you're going to be able to understand me. MDB. All right, so I created this folder here. Best practice require that installation of SQL Server should not be done on the root directory. You would need to create at least one folder to do this installation on it. So with that said, just go ahead and run this. So since it's an executable file, it's going to extract it and we're going to use it. Let me check if I had already extracted this earlier on my, may want to use the one that's already extracted. Let's see. SQL Server. Nope. Here we go. Here we go. And here media. Yeah, I already have it extracted. Okay, so I think I did that already, but the process might take a little bit long to extract. Let me see how fast it's going to take. Required to download. This means the version is no longer up. Please download again from the internet. All right, it's requiring me. Looks like I did not actually pick the right one. But what is actually going to happen here is that once you extract, you're going to have an image file like this, where you can really run and do the installation directly. So let me see. I did the downloads just today. This is today, right? And which one? Okay, I can just extract it directly here so you guys see what I'm talking about.
Doctor, is on the same page. So ISO.
Is it ISO? Yes.
Yes, on the same page, like next paragraph.
Yeah, so you can see here download media, because this executable file, you need to have the ISO file to be able to get it. So if I download this, let's see how long it takes. Not so long, and you are going to use that to do the installation with it. Okay, so let me pause here. I know some unnecessary copying. I'm just going to copy this file into my virtual machine. Without necessarily copying the file, I can load it directly from here. Go on my media and go on injector file, and then under my downloads. This is what I just downloaded. So I'll open this. And once I do that and look at this, you're going to see that the file has been uploaded here. Does it here, SQL Server 2022, without necessarily even copying it to this VM. All right, so this is for those who are doing on VM. So all I need to do is just double click on it and let's run the installation.
Wait for ini.
I just double click on it, yes. All right, so guys, I'm just going to run the installation and I'll pause a little bit and answer a few questions for those that are a little bit lacking behind. Okay. All right, everybody. All right. Okay, so this is the best practice in installing the SQL. So go on installation. We're doing a standalone installation. So click on standalone installation. And you clearly see here, install SQL Server reporting services, right? It's a different installation as on. So once we're done with this installation, we're going to run that to prepare the environment for our SSRS. So in the past, older version from 2016 and below, this installation used to be one installation, okay? So here I'm going to use the evaluation edition. It doesn't have a key. Next. Accept the license term. Next. All right, next. We don't need any updates because this is still community preview version, so it's not yet released. Okay. All right. So SQL Server 2022 comes with the Azure extension. Okay. I don't want to make it very complicated for most of you that don't have Azure background. So I'm going to make this a simple installation without adding the Azure extension. So what it simply means that with 2022, you have the option to be able to integrate SQL Server with Microsoft Azure. and you can use on-prem SQL Server connected with Azure Managed Instance or Azure Database as your backup location or as your disaster recovery location. In case a disaster was to happen, you can do a failover back and forth. This is something that was not present in 2019. This back and forth failing over between my on-premise and Azure has been introduced in 2022. If you want to do that, you may want to add the extension here. This will require you to have Azure Service Principal ID and set up all this to be able for that to work. But for this installation, I'm doing a simple installation, so I'm not going to do that. So I'll check this option and move on. There we need some features here. I need database engine. I need a replication as well. You can see here integration services. Reporting services is no longer an option like in the past. You had the option where you can choose reporting services. But integration services, we're not dealing with that today, so I'm going to skip that as well. And the only thing that I have here is, that is it. That's all I need. I don't need any machine learning for now, data services, and so on for analysis services. We're not dealing with that right now. Now look at this here, instant root directory. This is where you can see I created this folder called system, the S drive. This is where generally you don't want to have this pointing to the C drive. So I'll point this to the S drive. So I'll create a folder here called, point it to the S drive, and all this will point to the S drive, no longer on the C drive. This is best practices to make sure that you are not pointing anything to the C drive. The fact that I do that, these folders will be created on that S drive. Next. Okay, you can see here we are doing a simple default instant installation for this exercise. No, can SSRS be installed without SQL Server? Yes, you can install SSRS without SQL Server. But for you to configure it, you need SQL Server already installed somewhere, right? So even though my server name is dev, I don't necessarily have to have SQL Server installed on this, right? So you can as well just install SSRS on this and have the database configuration done on a different server. The reason why I'm doing this is for you to see that the configuration for that to happen, you need to make sure SQL Server is installed on a server, not necessarily on the same server, okay? So here I need an account for the service account and database engine. I already have account created in the Active Directory. If this is real life environment, I would have asked the Active Directory team to provide an account for me. And you can see here, this is my domain controller. I can have the account created under user. I have an account here created called cluster admin account, okay? This account has all the necessary permission to be able to be used for this. I have it as a member of the DBA team, domain admin, users, and remote desktop users. So I've given all necessary permission for this account, and I'm using this account as a service account, okay? So, all right, and because this dev is joined to my domain, I'm able to search for that account and find this in entire directory, cluster admin, and check for that name. And I find it is there. Yes, it's there. The password is there as password 1. And I'll copy the same account here and use the same account for database engine. Now, there are some companies where the SQL Server and database engine have separate accounts, but I've worked in so many environments where this account was the same for agent and database engine. We're not going to install any SQL browser because it's a default instance, so we're moving to next. Okay, I need mixed mode authentication and I need also a password for the service account here, SA account. Okay, and I'm adding myself as the user. I'm logging as a cluster admin, which happens to be the service account. Should I be doing this using my own personal account? I would have had to click here and search for the account. For example, I would have added the group I belong to. I have a group in the Active Directory called DBA. I would have to search for that group, make sure I select groups here and search for that and see that the group DBA should exist. See it underlined, meaning the group exists. I will be the one to add the group here. See the group exists, meaning that I will not, if this was my name, I will not add my personal account here, add for the group that I belong to. That's the best practices. And any other group that require sysadmin on the SQL Server, you add it here. So next, we have to go on data directories and configure the data directories. You can see everything is pointing to the S drive, but I don't want my data and log or backup to point to the S drive. So I'll browse here and look for my backup and put it here. This is my data and log. This is my log and my backup. I'm putting it on the in here backup. Okay, that's done. So data, log, backup, and then this is the data root directory, the S drive, and then we have to go to TempDB and also configure TempDB. I did create a folder also under TempDB. So I have here TempDB, and TempDB has both data and log. So I'm going to create a subfolder here for data. And the TempDB log, best practices, you should not put it on the same drive as TempDB because TempDB sometimes tends to be very contentious. So you want to make sure TempDB runs on a separate drive on its own, right? Or it runs on the same drive as the data. So I'll pull this TempDB data log and let it run on the log drive, and I'll create a folder here for TempDB. So I'll put my TempDB in here. I know most of you generally just put it on the same drive as the data, but best practice does not require you to do so. And of course, this is giving me a 1 file for TempDB file. Why? Because if I go on system information. Okay, let me right click here and go on system. What you see is that I'm running this on a virtual machine, and that virtual machine has 1 core processor here. It has just 1 core, right? See, just 1 core. So you remember the best practice for setting up TempDB files require that each core of processing speed should be equal to 1 TempDB file. And because I have only 1 core, this VM has only just 1 core, it gives me just 1 TempDB file. If I had 8 cores, I could have 8 files in here, and I'll have to configure them. And also the initial file for TempDB should be big enough, and the auto growth should be reasonable so that TempDB doesn't have to auto grow immediately. And this also goes the same with TempDB log and the initial file for TempDB log. So this is what I have. Max.value and memory, just like in SQL Server 2019, where you are able to configure this during installation. 2022 maintains that option as well. You can also do that, but I'm not going to do it right now. So I'm just going to move on. So I've configured my data drives, all my data directories, and that's all, right? So guys, you see this configuration part 5. This is what we're going to do in subsequent presentation. I am going to teach you guys how to do SQL Server installation in a silent mode without necessarily going through all this clicking left, right? We do automation of SQL Server installation through PowerShell. It's going to be one of the presentation. And what we typically will use is this file. So you initiate this file and you call a PowerShell command that runs this file and runs SQL Server installation in a silent mode. And this is what most companies are using nowadays for automation. So most of you, when you go out there and you say you know PowerShell, someone asks what are some of the things that you've automated with PowerShell, you could use this once you learn how to do it as a technology that you use PowerShell to automate SQL Server installation. So we have everything done. All I need to do is click install, and it will take roughly a few minutes and install. So let me pause the video here and record it. All right, guys. So at this particular moment here, our installation is completed, and you see it's successful, right? So SQL Server has been successfully installed 2022. One thing that I can do is that I can install SSMS on this machine to be able to connect. But since I already have SSMS installed on one of my servers, which is joined to the same domain, my prod, I can run SSMS directly here and still connect to that deck. So I have here SQL Server. Oh, looks like the SSMS was installed on the other one. Okay, all right, too bad. So I might have to download the SSMS. Okay, so let's get the SSMS downloaded. So SSMS 2922. It's actually 2019 anyway. I don't think 2022 is out yet. So the latest one is, I think it's 19.92, if I'm not mistaken. All right, 19.9, okay, 18.12.1 is the latest version that Microsoft released. Okay, and it's preview number 3. So let's go ahead and download this. Okay. All right, it's done. So this is, where is it? SSMS. This is it here. So I'm going to copy this SSMS into that VM and run that. I was hoping that I have it already pasted. All right, I'll delete this guy. All right, so what we're doing here right now is we want to do the installation of SSRS. And first, we need to download it. So you go online here and just type SSRS 2022 download and look for the Microsoft link, learn.microsoft, install SSIS reporting services. Click on it and download the first link that pops up here. This is it here, not Power BI, but this one here. It says, oh, where is it? This one here. Download SQL Server 2022 reporting services. So I have it here. That is it here. Downloaded. You can see it here already downloaded on my download folder. Is here. This is it here. SQL Server reporting services. I have it downloaded. So I'm going to copy this as well. If you're doing it on-prem on your local laptop, you have to run it directly. But since I'm doing it in a VM, I'm also going to copy it into this VM and paste it here. Guys, copying files into your virtual machine works well when you're pasting it on the desktop though. So don't try to paste it anywhere else, paste it on the desktop and you're able to have it. Okay, so let's complete this installation by installing the SSMS to make sure we're able to at least connect to SQL Server. Okay, let's hold up here. All right, it's done. So double click on this. And yes, it's a simple installation. Okay, and install. So Microsoft's newer SQL Server now comes integrated with Azure Data Studio. This is just telling you that if Azure is something that you don't plan to learn, you have to plan to do it someday in future. Because Microsoft is practically integrating Azure in everything that it offers. With 2022, we're already seeing that the installation involved already integrating with Microsoft Azure. And SSMS now is having Azure Data Studio already integrated, which just therefore tells you that Azure is coming, whether you like it or not. You have to plan to take it either now or take it one day. Okay. All right. So this is happening on the dev environment. I already have SQL Server on the prod. We're going to use it for our migration purpose to see how we can migrate an SSIS server and its report into a different server. But for now, I'm going to do the installation on this dev server and then do the configuration also on the same server. But like I said, you don't need to do the installation on the same server. You have the option to run the configuration on the same server and have the installation done on a different server. Okay, this is also some of the features that Microsoft has brought in with this newer version of SQL Server. For those who are writing down the different features that Microsoft has implemented. All right, let me pause this a little bit and hold on. All right, guys, so as you can see here, SSMS has successfully been installed on this virtual machine. So we can go ahead, close this installation and try to launch SSMS and see if we're able to connect to our SQL Server 2022 that we've just installed. Okay, and also you can see that as a tool, Azure Database Tuning Advisor 18 version now shows up as on the tool. In 2019, this never used to be the case. You had to go on there and launch, but here it shows up already as a tool, and you can launch it here directly and do your tuning for your queries. Like I said, it's much better visualization. It's a better statistics that are able to detect the base the base query. What's the right words for that? The best execution plan. Thank you. The best execution plan, so that the queries runs quite well. So this is quite extensive with 2022. This is something that you want to test it out and see how it compares quite well with 2019, right? Okay. So here clearly it was a dev instance. So we have the account called cluster admin. So we can go ahead and try to connect. Let's see if we're able to connect. Yes, we're able to connect. Okay. So yeah, we're connected to SQL Server 2022 here. We have no databases in this thing, but at least everything looks well. On the logins, we have created this DBA group in here during the installation. And if you check here, you're going to see that this DBA group has the sysadmin role because it was added during the installation. And also the cluster admin, which is the service account, also have the sysadmin role there. Okay. All right. And it looks a little bit different, right? Because these ones are not there with 2019. We don't have this database connector as a role or security definition reader. All these are different roles. I'm kind of curious to read a little bit and see what these roles, server roles, really do on the server. Okay. All right. So that was it. The goal was to do the installation. This is just the first part. And the next thing now is let's go ahead and install the SSRS server and make sure that we're able to configure it and make sure it's running properly. So to do so, we had already downloaded SSRS SQL Server reporting services and copy it. So this can go and copy it to our desktop. So we'll just go ahead and double click, run it. All right. Install we have is the developer edition. If this was the enterprise, you will be able to choose the enterprise and provide the product key. And next. Sorry, I got kicked out. Andre, see my screen? Okay, good. So you can see here what we're doing here. We install reporting services only. You will need to have or install a database engine on this server or on a different server, right? So for you to do this, it requires you to have a database engine installed. And that's what we did the first installation. So next, this is the path that we can send this on. And just like in the previous installation, I don't want to put this on the C drive. I'm going to push this to the system drive, the S drive. And then I'm going to install. Yes, run the installation. Okay, so you can clearly see, like I told you guys in the previous slide, that you can open the S drive and see that you can see those folders have been created. And if you open each folder, you're going to see subfolders there. These were the subdirectory that were created during the database engine installation, right? Also for this, okay? These are the two folders that were created. So let's hold on for this. Good. Installation doesn't take long. So we are done with reporting services installation. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and configure and customize the settings. Well, so now configure reporting server. Well, you can do this during the installation like I'm about to do right now. Or once you do the installation, you are going to see under SQL Server 2022 that there is a reporting server configuration manager. Let's see if it pops up. It's not showing up. Normally, probably it will show up after my installation is done. Okay. So I'm going to close this just to make sure that I don't have any interaction with this. Okay. Did it just disappear and then come back? There's a database, Azure Data Studio that's here. And normally I should have it showing up here. Showing up. And it doesn't show up. Let me run it one more time. Let's see. Add, next, accept terms, next, install only. Yeah, next. I thought that it installed it. Next. Oh, you need to restart. Okay, so probably that's why it's not showing, because I needed a restart for that to go in effect. So let's go ahead and restart our server. That is the reason why I'm even doing it on a VM, because then I'm able to restart on tape. All right, the first try did not work because I needed to have restarted the VM after I did the SSMS installation. So all changes that I did after that did not kick in because I needed a restart. So now I did it, and you can see that we are going on to the SQL Server Reporting Services Configuration Manager to be able to configure that. Right? Every SSIS that you install has SSIS report database, report DB, and SSIS report temp DB. Right? Those databases, and those are the databases that we have to configure right now. At this point, it is either you install this SSMS, this SSRS, and install and configure it on this server, or the database engine is on a different server, and we're using just this server to run SSRS while connecting to a database found on a different server. Right, so these options do exist. Okay, so make sure that you understand the difference. So here, all I need to do is, you can see the server name is already shown there, and the report server instance is SSRS. So we'll connect. Okay, good. You can see here it says started, but we have to configure it. There's no database name, there's no report server mode, and all those things. So we need to start up here, right up here. Generally, SSIS run under this virtual service account name, but you have the option to change the service account and let it run under a different account, maybe a domain account. Because we already have a domain account, what I can do in this situation is I can either use the same account that SQL Server is running on, which is a bad practice, or I will send a ticket to the Active Directory team to create an account for me for SSIS. And since we're doing it real life, let's do the right thing. So we're going to go back, submit the ticket. I need an account created for me, and I'm going to call that account SSIS user. All right. So I'll create a new user, and I'm going to call this user SVC for service account _ SSIS SSRS prod for production. Prod, I call it SVC_prod SSRS for production SSIS server. This is SSRS. SSRS. So the self account name will be SVC_prod SSRS. That is account that I'm requesting the team to create for me, and the password will maintain the same password, password 1, as the account password, password 1. And I'll make sure the password does not never expires. User should not change the password. And go ahead, and this account now is created, but I'm going to give this account some permission. I'm going to give this account administrative permission, administrator. Guys, this is what the Active Directory team will do, but most of the time, you might not even have this permission added. So you really don't need this permission. The only reason why I'm granting this permission is because I want to be able to use this account to also log in and do some stuff. Okay, so I'll give it a remote desktop. But at work, it's just a simple account that you create remote desktop. Okay, that's the account. I'm good. So I can go back. Now, the ticket now comes back to me. Account is already created. That is the password. And I'll go ahead and continue with my work. So I'll go back to my installation and say I need that password, that my domain name is KiaWeTech. And backslash the account is SVC_prod SSRS. And the password was password 1. Okay, see, and apply. If the password is correct, you see, it picked up the account and it did not complain. So it looks like the account is working. There you go. Perfect. So now SSRS is running on the service account. Do you know why a service account is important for this? Because if you have issues and you're trying to troubleshoot where the issues are coming from, if you run the same service account for SQL Server, SSRS, your application, or all other applications that are running, when you see the service account, you are not going to be able to troubleshoot where the problem is coming from. Is the problem coming from as a result of SSIS? Is the problem coming as a result of SQL Server, an application, or what is causing the problem? So that's why you need different service accounts that connects to the database, and you can troubleshoot when an issue arises. Okay, so we have configured the service account. The next thing is the web URL. This is what your server will use to communicate. Okay, so at this point here, it had already picked up the web URL, but if I click apply, make sure that it uses this URL dev. It talks through port 80 because SSRS do require HTTPS connection, so port 80 needs to be open, and that's why you see here HTTP, not PS, sorry, HTTP dev, and then 80 backslash the report server. Now, why is it HTTP without an S? It's because this is generally done in your real life within your entire domain, and you want to make sure that no firewall is open between the SSIS server and the database server. I'm going to show you guys how you can do those configurations if you run into an issue with firewall. Okay, so at this point here, my web service URL is configured. I can reach this SSIS using this, but the database is not configured. This is where you see that I can change my database and configure this database. So click on change database, create a new report server database, or choose an existing report server database. Let's say I was doing this configuration with the database engine installed on a different server. I'll use this option and choose that database. And if I click next, all I need to do will be to connect to that server. For example, let's say I was trying to connect to prod. I can do a test connection. And I really don't know if SQL Server is installed on prod, so this might not really work. This is my prod. Let's see if SQL Server is properly installed and it's running here. I know I did some installation, I deleted some, so I don't know if the files are running. So that's why it might not connect. And you can see here it stopped because SQL Server was installed here in as a default, as a traditional failover cluster installation, and I've deleted it. So it's not going to connect. So of course, this is not going to work. All right. But if that was the case, you will be able to connect there directly. Okay. So I'm putting it back to dev, and I'm going to go on this account, right? This is the account that this database, this service account is created on that server. And I can say test connection. It says connection succeeded. Yes, it has to succeed. SQL Server service account. If you wanted to try a different account, we can also do password 1. SA was another account, and you test the connection. It will also succeed. But I don't want to run this under a SQL service account because SSIS requires some permissions to build the reports. I want to use it as a domain account. So I'll go on current user integrated security, which goes with this account, test connection, and see that it succeeds. So next, what is the database report server? This is the time that you would have chosen the database name. If you were choosing an existing database, but that's not what we're doing. Okay, we're not doing that. So let's go back. Just wanted to show you this, that in this case, we're not choosing an existing report server database, but we are going to create our own database. Right, next. And test connections, fine, next. So it's going to create 2 databases, report server and TempDB database, report server 10. Language is English, and we're doing a native installation. Next. Credentials, we are using the service account svc_prod SSRS. And there you go. Pause the video and hold on until it's finished. So as you can see, the configuration is done, configured successfully. We'll go ahead and finish this, and our database is successfully installed. Next thing is our web portal. And probably here, some companies might change this web portal, but you can, if you're going with native installation, default installation, all you need to do is click on apply, and it will pick it up. That's why it's so fine. All right, so our virtual directory, this is where all the directory where the reports will come in from. And you see the URL is also HTTP. And it talks through a port 80, which will be open if there was any firewall. So all we need to do is go ahead and click on apply. And it's created a virtual directory here, and it has created a port, and the task is completed successfully. Okay, now we are able to access it. Now, email settings. Now, if you are doing this SSIS and you want to configure email, now this will require an email server to be able to have SSIS once the job run or complete or fail, a report should be generated on an email sent to a team. You could go ahead and configure the email setting, and it will require an SMTP server for this to work. So we're not going to do this today. The encryption keys, this is what you guys are going to see once we are doing the migration. When you migrate SSRS, you have to make sure that the encryption keys are backed up, and they are also in a new server that you restore it there. You need to restore the encryption key before SSRS can work on the server. And of course, subscription settings, these are more complicated settings, or scale out deployment, where you can actually scale it out to multiple servers. With these guys, this completes the installation and configuration of SSIS. But how do we see it? Now, we've done something. So let's see if we're able to visualize it. So if I click back here and go back to, you see here the folder has been created, Microsoft SQL Server Reporting Services. You have the Reporting Services Configuration Manager here, where you can literally use it to run. So if I open it back and go back, yes, and connect, you'll be able to go back on web URL. And if you click on this, for example, it will open a web URL. You should be able to connect. Start without your data. Confirm, start browsing. I don't want to browse, so close and close. All right, so let's do it one more time. Okay. And because it requires internet connection, so at this moment here, I will definitely have to put the server on the default switch for my server to have access to the internet, for me to be able to access it directly. Okay, so that's why it's failing here. So, and it's very easy for me to do this. If I go on the web as well and try it, because you're accessing this directly via the web portal, right? It needs the connection. And you can also see here, it's trying to tell you to check if there's any firewall connection. But the thing is, the SSRS server that we're running here is on the same server. It's not configured on a different server. So firewall should not really be any of an issue, okay? But if I was to get this, open this one directly, and let me get this server, this other server that's in the domain. I don't want to put this, I want to put this one here, this server that's here under default switch, so that I'm able to have access to the internet. So, and we can test it. So this is the server, and I can put it here. If I go here and put it under default switch, fly, and go back here to the server and open a web browser. Let's see if it works. Okay, so put it there. Let's enter. Okay, still not opening. I think one thing I need to check also here on the local server, I need to, on this, I may want to turn this on so that, turn it off, so that I'm able to have access to internet. And try one more time. Still not. All right, let me pause the video here and do a few cuts here. All right, guys, so we're doing a second attempt. 2022 failed, so we're doing here with 2019, sorry. So we've just reinstalled SQL Server 2019 on this VM, and then we reinstall SSRS on this VM. So we want to reinstall and reconfigure SSIS and see if we're able to launch them. Okay, so at this point here, we're maintaining the virtual account. I don't want to change the account for now. May change it later on, keeping the virtual service account here, which is inbuilt. And then for the web here, we apply. So it creates this web URL. Okay. All right, created. And then for the database, we're going to create the database, create a new database, and we are doing it not on this server, but on, here we take, no, this is dev /SSRS test. Yes, connect. So the instance name is this dev /SSRS, next, and next. Yes, next, next. So you generate a database script and run database script. The database script will go on this instance and create the two databases, that is report server and report server temp DB databases. All right, successful. If you check here now, you should be able to see the two databases. There they are. Okay, let's continue. Web portal. Apply. So it creates the web portal URL. And generally that is it. So let's launch it to see. I already started it, but let me just launch it without restarting. Let's see if it works. This is a different volume. Okay. So try again. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this URL, and then on this server, which is the prod server, I will make this prod access to the internet without necessarily deleting this guide and test it from this. Give it here default switch. Okay, sorry, on default switch, and that prod, and I log on to web browser. Okay, google.com. Okay, it sees google.com, so let's try it again. At least it hasn't failed, so maybe it worked. Switch. Come on. Got to be kidding me, right? Something must be blocking this. Need to figure out what. Okay. If firewalls off, assign IP address dynamically. Yeah, everything. Okay, so let's go back. This, try again. This time around, try. Okay, so it's not working. Refuse to connect. Server. Did anybody do along with me with 2019 and it worked? I mean, we've done everything correct, huh? What we're supposed to do. I'm really wondering why it wouldn't allow me to connect.
Doctor, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Please, what's the difference between the network service account and the virtual inbuilt account?
Well, that's the inbuilt account from the from SSIS. The network service account is the account that you create. Generally, in real life, you want to have it run on the network service account. But I did it before and it didn't work, so I wanted to allow the default settings, see if it still works. So,
Doctor.
Yes, please.
So I was doing it on my end, right? I don't really know what are we expecting, but I think it works.
It works for you?
Yeah, it did.
Can you share your screen? Let me actually see what is showing up on your screen.
Give me 1 second, right?
Got to have it working. I'm doing it right. It has to work.
Sorry about this. Try to share my screen. Hold on, give me 1 second. Let me just stop sharing first. And put this one here. Okay.
Are you sharing?
Yeah, I'm about to. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what I think. And then when I click on this, give me the options to sign in.
At least administrative account.
Yeah.
There you go. So why is it not working for me? That's what I need to see. All right.
So,
So what is it different on your server that is working and it's not working out for me? Is this server on the default switch? Is it on internal switch?
So me on my end, right? I just create a new switch, right? So my VM is connected to the internet, and then at the same time connected to the carry tech. So I don't know if that's what I.
So you put it on a default switch?
It's using both of them, but I think the default switch is the one that you're supposed to use.
Yes.
But me myself, I'm using both of them.
Generally, this is how you do that work. You have the internal network and you have the another network to create the internet. But okay, so all right. So
I think you just need a default switch.
It's working out for you. And this is 2019, right?
Yeah, I'm using the 19.
Okay. So, just so I don't have to go out, we don't have so much time left. At least
I think because you disconnected from disconnected from the domain controller. We have to add the extra switch.
Say it again.
It could be because you disconnected from the DC.
But I disconnected before because it wasn't working. That's why I had to do that. All right. Okay. So what you're seeing here right now, the folder is empty. There are no reports. Right. So generally, this is what you do. Once you've gone through the configuration like I was doing, you should be able to click on that and SQL Server reporting services should open. For some weird reason, it's not working on my computer, but you can clearly see here the report says folder is empty. But then what you're supposed to see is here. First of all, we need to be able to grant permission for individuals to be able to log on to the server. And how do we do that? And there's several different ways in which we could do so. Can you please give me permission? Let me pick it up from there on your screen. Let me request.
Okay, yeah, sure. So is that something I need to do?
Request, you have to grant.
Okay.
All right, perfect. So you can clearly see here, guys. So on the browser, it shows that there are no folders here, no report. You can go here on manage folder. Allow me to click here. Can you click on manage folder?
Oh, you want me to click on it? Okay.
Yes, don't let me click. Okay, so you can see here manage folder, and generally here these folders will be the folders in which all the reports will be sitting on. Okay, you see here the only account that is created here is the built-in account. So which means that no group will be able to read any of the report so long as permission is not granted to that group. Now in SSRS, one of your jobs as database administrator will be to configure this SSRS and grant the necessary permission for users to be able to log in and read the report and maybe edit to do whatever thing they want to do with the report. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Generally, SSIS will only work with Windows accounts. So you will not be able to do this with SQL Server accounts. So anybody that needs access to the report will need to have the account created in the Active Directory, and then you can go ahead and grant it here. And we do that using the principle of least privileges, and also making sure that we grant permission through groups, not as individuals. Mark, do you have any groups that you create in the Active Directory? For the capstone project, you should have some groups created, right?
I think I have some.
Okay, so can you go just open your DC? Let me verify if you have a few groups created, because I want to grant permission here. I can do it with individuals as well as with groups. So just open your DC. Let me see something.
Okay. It's not giving me the option.
And I promise you, I'm going to repeat this video one more clean, straight all the way to installation and upload it. This one had a lot of breaking things like that. I don't really like it. Okay, so no, that is not your VM screen. So minimize exactly. Okay, let's launch Active Directory. Let me see if we can figure out a few users. All right. Okay. Good. So you had a group called subgroup 1. Okay, that's good. And there's a few users. Okay, like Coffee, Ivo, Mac, Adela, and so on. So at least you have some groups and some few names. All right, let's go back to that server. Keep this one open. Don't close it. Don't close it.
Okay.
Just optimize it. Let's go back to the server here. Okay. So now let's assume that you want to grant permission to a group of users. Right. So go on add group or user.
Where is that?
Here, add group or user.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So at this point here, what you're trying to do is that you go ahead and type the username in here, right? Okay.
So
type the group. There was a I saw subgroup something, right? Let's do it with the group first.
yes. So was subgroup 4 or 1? Let me just.
That's the one you belong to. Probably that's the group that you belong to. Okay. It's
So,
subgroup 4. Yes.
Okay. Subgroup 4. Okay.
Okay, so, and there are different permissions that you grant with SSIS, right? There are permissions as a browser. When you grant browser permission, this so simply means that the user, once given the browser, you may log on, view the folders, view the report, and subscribe to the report. You cannot make any modification, more or less in SQL Server like read-only permission. You have this one here. Next permission here is content manager. The content manager can be manage content in the report server. This includes folders, report, and resources. So it's able to manage the content. My report, once you're given my report, you may publish a report. So once you log in, you're able to publish a report and link to reports. So manage folders, report, and resources in user my report folder. That will only happen on the my report folder. When you log in, you have a folder linked to you, where within that folder, you're able to do those things. Publisher may publish report and link report to report server, and report builder may view report definition. Now, once you are given permission, depending on what that person needs to do, is he just trying to read the report, or that person needs to be able to publish report, or maybe to manage everything, right? Let's say I want to give permission for subgroup 4, that's the database team or the SSRS report server administrators. I want them to be able to do everything. So I'm going to grant them full permission on this, give them full permission. and click OK. There you go. You can clearly see here, it's a domain group. Here we take backslash subgroup 4 that has permission to do everything on the server. Now, this is at a level of looking at a report, but there's more permission. Now, what you need to do is, can you click on this and go on site settings? Okay, and go on security. So you can see here, just like in SQL Server, where you create access to report, or you grant access to users and map the user to a database and they can read content of a database, or you can even go on level of the server and give extra permission for the user to be able to manage things at the level of the server. Here also, you can grant someone permission to be able to manage the site itself, not just the report. Right? So if someone needs to be able to manage the site, you're able to grant that permission here. Go ahead and click add user or group and type the same group. Okay, and there are two permissions here. There's a system administrator and a system user. Now, the system administrator may view, modify, system role assignment, system role definition, system properties, and shared schedule. As a system user, you may view system properties, view schedule, share schedule, and allow use of report builder or other client that execute report definition. You don't have permission to be able to manage the site, but you're able to view that. So as an individual who may want to manage report or view report, you may grant as system user, but if you want that individual to be able to manage the entire site, you give system administrator. So please just go ahead and give the system administrator and click OK. All right. So what does that person do? Go on schedule, the left. You can click new schedule. Right. So once here we have not gotten to a point where we can at least do a simple report to show how the report will run. We clearly see here with the schedule, I can call this schedule here. Let's give a name, call it daily report. Call it daily report. One word. Daily report. No, daily. With the I is missing.
Oh, okay.
Daily, yes. ILY. Daily report, yes. All right. So this is a report. How often do I want this to run? Maybe daily. And this is given in UTC time. So check day. And you see, you can check when you want this report to run and when exactly this report should run. Scroll down. And then you can also decide when it should stop, right? Let's just say it starts today and stop maybe after 1 week. If you don't click stop on, it will run indefinitely, right? So uncheck that stop on and apply. Okay, the agent is not running on SQL Server, of course. For this to run, agent has to be running on SQL Server. Can you go on SQL Server on this machine and make sure the agent is running? No, not on your local machine, on the VM. Here.
Okay.
No, this is not where you were doing the stop, right? This is a different. This is your.
I was doing it on my CAP server, so it should be.
Yeah, it has to be on the CAP server. Yeah. Yeah, you see, the agent is not running because these reports that you are creating, the schedule will generate a script and it will create a job here. And this is an SSIS job, which will run whenever the jobs are supposed to are scheduled. If you go back here and do it again, it should work now. No, go back. This is it here. No, open the CAP server.
I can't see it.
Open the CAP server. Yes, open this. No,
Okay. Is this one, right?
this. Yeah.
Oh, it's gone.
I think
Okay,
was,
I got it. It was on the Google Chrome.
so is it on Chrome or Edge?
Is that on Chrome?
Okay, can you go
But
ahead
when
and
you-
apply now? Apply.
Yeah, okay.
Good. See, you now have a schedule, right? And any report that you generate now, you can use this schedule, and this schedule will run the report. Now, if you go back on SSMS and expand jobs, you can see it there. This is it here. Right? That one up there. Generally, those reports come with a funny name, but that's the SS. This is open that job. Open that job. You can clearly see here it's an SSIS report job. Right? So you can rename it if this funny name doesn't mean anything to you. You have the option to rename it, and that is how you configure it. I'll stop here today, but I do promise you guys that I'm going to make sure that that we get a clean, nice, recorded video of what we are planning to do today. Unfortunately, the 2022 disappointed us, but at least I hope that you were able to learn something from this. So what have you actually learned from today's exercise? You learn how you can install, configure SSIS by, first of all, installing the SQL Server on the machine, and then installing the SSIS and configuring this SSIS. Once this SSIS has been configured, you can go ahead and grant the necessary permissions required to run jobs, view report, and create access to individuals that need these SSIs. And you've also seen how you can set up schedule. We did not get to set up report, but you can see how you're able to set up schedule. These schedules now become jobs on SQL Server, which you can now run, which will run SSIS report and generates report at a certain time. Now, for the next session on Tuesday, what we're going to do is, after I've uploaded the video, I'll make sure all of you watch the video and repeat it. We are going to learn how we can actually migrate. This is an SSIS server from server A to server B. I'm going to spend like 30 minutes to demonstrate that one more time. And then we're going to move on to also learning how we can create simple reports on SSIS. And we will move on to SSIS. And before then, I'm going to give you exercises, give you homework so that you can pre-configure your environment before class so that we will have a much productive class. I hope that was fruitful, guy. I hope that was helpful. At least if you are in the job market, at least if your company comes up to you and wants you to configure this SSIS server, you know how to do it. Or if you're talking about it in an interview, you're talking about your experience dealing with SSIS, at least you can mention the things that we've done today. And you can use our issues as problem that you face dealing with SSIS, right? We tested SSIS 2022 and ran into issues. To be very honest with you, I really don't know why it wasn't working for me. I guess it's maybe linked to some firewall rules that's blocking access to SSIS. But at least you can use this for your talking point in interview or use it at your work if you're given the task to do this kind of thing. All right. Okay. Questions, please, before we leave.